Hey, what's up, Ah, shit. What the fuck? Okay. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Nate Haskins. Back again with another Puppet 3D tutorial. This time is going to be similar to last time, but I'm going to start from scratch, open up the project, and we'll just start going through it. The whole goal here is we're going to take a skeletal hand like last time and animate that. So we're going to use this for practice. So starting right from the top, I'm going to fire up Unity Hub and get this project going. So I keep a project just for Puppet 3D stuff I call Puppet 3D Workshop. Ultimately, what I'd like to do is create the stuff in the workshop and then export it out into a project so I don't have to have a lot of dependencies for Puppet. Although there's a few ways you can go with the program, is what I've been reading, is that you can either build it and animate it with Puppet, or you can build it, animate it, and then export it so it doesn't have Puppet dependencies. Interesting process either way. So, the first thing I like to do is get rid of this background. I don't know why, but looking at that default skybox, it's not my style really. So there we go. Easy fix right there. And then we'll get right into it. So my artist slash sound guy, Rob Splicer Smith, created a skeletal hand in medium here. So we'll pull this hand into the hierarchy. Now, the first thing I want you to note with this, and maybe you run into this too with your own stuff, is that sometimes the rotations and transforms, and you want it to be all zeroed out when you're doing animation and Puppet if you can. So to get this fixed, I'll just throw in a little Blender bit right here. I'm going to open this hand back up in Blender. And this is something that I have to do quite a bit, but it kind of confused me for a while. So the trick to this is that in Blender, it comes in, it looks right, but it's rotated -90. So to fix this, go back to Blender, select the item, find the rotation over here. Now I'm in object mode is the thing to notice, and then set it to -90. And then after that, I'm hitting Control A to apply the rotation. You'll know it works when that goes back to 0, and then I'm going to save this and exit out of it and go back to Unity. Now Unity will update based on the Blender file that just got updated. And what we see now is the hand's orientation has changed. So I'm going to get rid of what I dragged into the hierarchy and drag a fresh copy of that file directly in. See how this negative's here now? If I zero this out, it goes back to the proper orientation that we expect. So little Blender hack there. Okay, so now that it's zeroed out, first step is to go ahead and set up the scene for this. So I want to create a layer that I can lock stuff to, because I'm going to be locking some things here. Now, you normally go to layers, and then you could pick any layer to give it this tiny, almost non-seeable lock icon. Go ahead and lock that in. And then that creates a lock layer. So I'm using the transparency layer as a lock layer. So I'm going to take my camera, I'm going to take my main light, and I'm going to take the object, and I'm going to throw them all on the effects layer here because I want them all locked. This is going to prevent me from clicking stuff accidentally. It's going to come in handy later. Alright, second step. In order to apply bones to this thing, which is the first step to rigging, I'm going to open up the Puppet 3D menu. Here we go. We'll go to skeleton. And so I'm going to rearrange my desktop a little bit just to make this easier to work with. We don't need to be looking at all this stuff. I like to try to simplify as much as possible. So the console, we're not going to use too much for this. We do need to know if something explodes, so we'll just keep an eye on that. Project will need not nearly as much now that we have the hand in here, so I'm going to mix that with the hierarchy. The hierarchy will definitely need. The game preview window we don't really need, but I'm going to make it small and just put it down there just to keep an eye on things. And then the other thing is going to be the inspector. So that's looking good. Then we've got Puppet. We're going to need that. Later we're going to need the animation windows. But for now, just to kind of keep it clean, I'll load them up and put them into place so they're ready to go when we need them. So here's the animation. We're going to need that. And then I don't know if we'll get as far as the animator in this video. So for now, I'll load it, but I don't think we're going to need it right up front. So here's the animator. Let's see how far we get. This is more of like a freestyle kind of video where you can kind of watch it for process and stuff, rather than like you don't necessarily watch. Or all right, so my perspective is this: I'm recording this with the idea of this can be referenced, so you don't necessarily have to like sit here and watch me do all this stuff. You can skip forward, skip back, skip to different parts of the video, and pull out reference as you need it. I think that's a good way to work a lot of the time. So I do apologize. It's taking me a minute to click around here. I'm on my laptop, um, so it's a little slower going, but we're pretty much done. All right, so this is looking good. We're going to take the animator window. The animator window is pretty large, so you can kind of shrink it that way. Definitely going to need our hands on this puppet window right off the bat. Okay, that looks pretty good. So now, with all that stuff in place, we've got this locked. Sometimes these things, like your lamps, can get in the way, so move it up. That looks good. All right, so down to the business of applying the bones. So the goal here is we're going to make these fingers be able to move. In the last tutorial, we made them make a fist, so we're going to go over that again pretty quickly. So create bone, and we're going to need to outline major pieces here. Create that one, finish, click back on create again, clicking off the bone so we don't get too many of them here. Finish, click it off, create, 1, 2, that one's a little off, 3, 4, finish, clicking off so it doesn't link, create. I think you see how this process goes. Create. All right, finish there. So look at this. See how the stuff's floating in space? Now it's cool looking, but that's not lined up. So you could spend your time trying to do, this kind of business where you could grab this stuff and try to like park it, but that's totally going to be a waste of time. Instead, Puppet has the ability to place the bones based on a mesh. So you want to take this object right here and add a mesh to it. So mesh collider is what we're looking for. Now the mesh collider is going to make it so that when we create a bone, this bone is going to snap right to the geometry. I mean, it's a really nice feature. So to make this a little more visible, I'm going to finish this and get rid of what I just created. And kind of notice the fluency too, in which you can just kind of trash stuff and create stuff. I think that's something to take away from this process that I found helpful after learning, is that a lot of this stuff's pretty fluid. So we're going to take this, now that it's got the nav mesh, the mesh collider attached to it, and I'm going to change the material of this a little bit because it's a little easier to see if it's transparent. So you could do something like go up to shaded and go to wireframed. That's a good way to go about it. You can go to shaded wireframe. Whatever works for you. So we'll try wireframe. You can see this is a fairly dense mesh, and that's kind of one of the points too, is that you can do dense rigging with this, which is nice. So creating the bone tool and clicking, you can see now that these are snapping like real nice where they should be. Click finish and have a look. Yeah, look, it just binds right to it. Really good, really nice. So we'll do this for the same process for the rest of the fingers. I'm putting these right by the major joints and kind of skipping that last finger bone there. But that's fine for now. 1, 2, and I'm looking to keep these pretty even. About 4 apiece. I'm clicking off so I don't accidentally extend the last node I created after clicking finish. Looks pretty good. So finish, click, create. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now that looks a little bit messed up, so let's try that one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. That looks better. Okay, so those are the main bones that I want to animate over time. These fingers are going to move. Now the hand itself, I want to have a little bit of stability in here. But something to talk about is something called weight painting. And if you're familiar with weight painting, you already know how this goes, but what I'm going to do quickly is just show the effect of weight painting and then talk about why we're going to put some bones down here that we're not even going to animate. So if you take these bones as they are and bind them to the skin, it's going to make it so they can animate. So in the hierarchy, we are going to first select all the bones we just created. I find the easiest way to do this is to type that word bone right into here, and then go ahead and select the first one, select the last one, hold down shift and left click to highlight them all. It works really nice at this stage of the game. So once you have all those highlighted, shut the filter off, go back and hold down control left click the mesh itself. When you have these two connected, go to the puppet window, go to skinning, and then from skinning, click bind skin. Now, this takes just a minute, depending on how dense your mesh is, how fast your computer is, those kind of things. The giveaway for this is this button right here looks like it's pressed down while it's thinking. And then when it's done, it pops up. So computer's not actually seizing, hopefully, and it takes a little time. And this one's done. All right, so the first check I want to do here is just to see if these bones generally got to where they needed to go in terms of binding to the skin. So if you pick this node, this node, this node, this node, and this node, and then rotate them, you can see that the weight of this is kind of wacky, right? And what I mean by that is, if we were to take just this finger and move it, see how it's moving all that bone down there? And that has to do with the weight painting. Let's try this one. Yeah, it is just all over the place. That is no good. Now, there's two ways to fix this. I'm going to show you the hard way, and then I'm going to show you the easy way. So the hard way would be to come in here and fix the weights. So what do I mean by weight painting? Well, weight painting is the influence on the mesh that the bone has. And it's visualized like this. If you click on the mesh, and then you go to rigging, you go to skinning, and then click on paint weights. This will create a visualization of the influence of the material, on the material. So up here, we'll go from wireframe back to shaded. And then in shaded view, we can see the influence of these things. So for example, anything that's white is going to be influenced by the rotation and movement of that bone. Anything that's black does not care. So as you can see, all this is moving, right? Because of the way it's painted. Now if I came in here and did something wacky like painted this, guess what? It's all going to get influenced. The opposite's true too. If you unpaint it, this would take forever at this, but you can come in here, unpaint that a little bit. The skin weight that you paint is controlled right here in this slider, so I'm going to crank it up to 1 to make it as heavy as possible. And holding down control, I'm coming in here and just erasing stuff. And then I'm going to hit shift and blend stuff. Now this is one approach to it, but you can see this can take some time. You got to come in here and kind of figure everything out, do a little painting down here, and then adjust it. So this process, in my opinion, you want to do as little as possible as far as weight painting goes. All right, so now you're seeing like we could fix it this way. It's just going to take a while. I suggest to you not to bother with this approach this early on. Instead, we'll go to Finish, Edit, Skin Weights. We're going to then throw out what we just did by clicking on the model itself here. We'll go back to skinning, and we're going to detach the skin. We're just throwing out the whole attempt right there. All right. So now, two things we can see here. First of all, this bone is a little bit far out, and I think that has to do with the rotation that we were just playing with here. So if we start hitting Control Z a bunch of times, we can bring it right back to the point where this bone is fine. If we check the skin again, there's two ways to check here. You can see that this is offset, so this means we need to unbind that skin again. Detach. Now the bone itself, if they give you trouble, they're so easy to recreate sometimes, it's worth it just throwing the thing out and just clicking it again. Don't underestimate how much time you can save by just doing that. So we'll come in here, skeleton, create bone tool, and then we'll put that right back. I mean, think about how much time you could have spent trying to edit that. Sometimes it's easier just to create things. All right, so that's back in place. Now, to get rid of that weight painting problem that we had earlier, we're going to put some bones in here to define some structure. And all they're going to do in our example is just be like placeholders for weight painting. So create bone. We're going to create one here. Oops. And then we'll put it up to here. We'll finish that one. Click off of it, create a new one. That looks pretty good. We'll finish that one, create a new one, and I'm going to add it right here. Oops. I'm going to click off of it. See, if you don't click off of it and you after pressing finish, it continues on. So click off of it's good. Oh my God. Why? All right, finish, clicking off, clicking create, clicking back. Thank God. All right, so there we go. Finish, click off. So now with these extra bones in place, our weight painting and our animation should get a lot easier. So same process here. We have to select all these bones. Now, if you went like this, I want to show you a trap. Don't get caught by this. If these are all closed, and you click the first one, click the last one, notice that if you click in, these are still not selected. Why they don't select in like a parent hierarchy, I'm not sure. So use the filter to type in bone, and then Control A to grab them all. You gotta unclick the scene too. Why the scene shows up in the filter, I don't know. But unclick that, and then Control click this, and then go back to rigging or skinning, and click bind smooth skin. Now there's some choices in there next to skinning. You can change it from voxel if you want it to be a little faster in the calculation, but for this it's not bad. So we're just going to go and bind it with voxel. And it takes just a second to think. And now the advantage is that we've defined these bones in here. So our weight painting and the accuracy of our default stuff should be a lot better. Okay, so this is finished. Let's go ahead and give this a test now. Clear out the console. We'll take this and move it. All right, now look at that. It's targeted right generally where we want it. If we go back to the weight painting, let's have a look at the big difference here. So under skinning, we've got this object clicked, and then we're going to go to paint weights. And then I got to switch the view up here from wireframe back to shaded so we can see it. We're going to pick that same bone that we were looking at earlier. I'm going to use the hierarchy and the up and down keys to get to that bone. I find that a little easier. And now look at the difference. This is only covering a small section of that finger. It's not covering this wrist at all. And that's because these bones down here that are in the wrist are now taking up that job of that weight painting. So if we go into those, back on the hierarchy, scroll down a little bit, you can see, well, battery's running low. Okay, you can see where these little bones are now like way more defined into a region. So you don't have to come in here and do nearly as much weight painting. That's kind of the lesson there about the weight painting is do less of it because it's kind of hard and kind of tedious. So avoid it if you can. All right, I am going to stop this video here and pick it up again after I've plugged my laptop in. I'll catch you on the other side. If you like this video, please give it a like. Please give it a subscribe. And this is all going towards a game we're working on called Horde. That's the working title for it. More about that later. I'll be right back. I'll see you on the other side.